Good day. I'm Desiree Dabalos, a student from the University of Mindanao, and this is our final requirement for EM 102, the basic inferential statistics. We are tasked to select a specific research study that's already been published, and then we will try to evaluate or critique the study from the research title to the results and discussions and its statistics values. So I will present to you the critical review, research objectives, methodology, results, and statistical evaluation of my chosen study, which is the relationship of reading comprehension and arithmetic proficiency skills of intermediate pupils at Madatag Elementary School, basis for intervention. This is from Telma Igangaw, a student of Apayao State College, Malama, Philippines. So for this critical review, I will show to you the parts of her study from the research title to the recommendation, and in every area, I will try to critique or to give my evaluation of the study. And this presentation, the overview of this is from the research title, the introduction of the study, the statement of the problem, research methodology, results and discussion, summary, key points, and last but not the least, my recommendation. So before I start, I chose this research because I'm quite interested if these two variables do have relationship, whether the reading comprehension really influence the student's mathematical or arithmetic skills. And based on my experience and teaching experience when I was a student in college, I observed that the problem of the students in solving a specific mathematical problem is that they don't understand the problem itself. So I think the reading comprehension of the student really impact the mathematical skills of the students. So for the critical review, let's start with its research title. So basically, the research title is the relationship of reading comprehension and arithmetic proficiency skills of intermediate pupils at Madatag Elementary School. Basis for intervention. So if we're going to assess or evaluate the research title, first, the strength is that it clearly identifies the two main variables, which is the reading comprehension and arithmetic proficiency skills. Next, the target group was specified, which is the intermediate pupils. Also, the research setting, which is the Matatag Elementary School. The praise basis for intervention shows practical educational relevance and descriptive and aligned with the actual content of the study. So for the areas for improvement, as you can see, the title is quite long. So it could be shortened for conciseness. It does not explicitly state the research design, which is correlational study. Could be streamlined to improve readability without losing its meaning. And my overall comment or evaluation for the research title, the title is very clear, specific, and informative, but slightly lengthy and could be refined for brevity. So we are done with the research title, and let's proceed with its introduction of the study. So this is the introduction of her study. So when you see the introduction part, I really say that the introduction of the study is quite long also. And if you notice the dates, the years of the relevant studies were 5 years beyond. So let's try to assess the introduction of the study. So first, my first observation is that the study begins with emphasizing that reading comprehension is essential for learners to understand academic content across subjects. So it's very good. Next, in mathematics, particularly in solving word problems, students must read, interpret, and analyze written information. Number three observation is that the study highlights that comprehension can directly affect how well students perform in arithmetic tasks, especially when mathematical problems are presented in word-based format. This establishes the theoretical connection between the two variables, which is the literacy and numeracy. In addition, the strength of its introduction of the study, it clearly explains the importance of the two variables, established a connection between literacy and numeracy. It cites relevant theories such as Piaget and Vygotsky to support the theoretical foundation, which is very good. It highlights practical classroom relevance. aligns well with the purpose of the study. So the areas for improvement, the literature review could be more comprehensive and include more empirical studies. Some concepts are mentioned but not deeply explained. The introduction is somewhat narrative and could be more focused and concise. The research gap is not explicitly stated. The transition from theory to the specific local context could be more clear. And my last comment for the introduction of the study, I suggest that the researcher would find more related studies to support her study and avoid using those studies that are beyond 5 years or from the current year. So we are now in 2026. So you can use 2021 above studies. So it's better to use recent or current studies to be included in the introduction of the study. And let's proceed to the statement of the problem. So I have here a screenshot of her statement of the problem. So it has 6 research questions. And I'm going to evaluate these 6 research questions. First, it clearly identifies the main focus of the study, which is the relationship between reading comprehension and arithmetic proficiency. The research questions are specific and measurable, which is very good. Questions are logically arranged from the levels of variables, relationship, challenges, and intervention. She also included the intervention. And it aligned with the research design, which is the descriptive correlational. Thus, it includes a hypothesis which supports statistical testing. For areas of core improvement for the statement of the problem, some questions focus on challenges, but the methodology does not clearly explain how these challenges were measured. The statement could be more concise or brief by combining closely related questions. And the research problem could explicitly state that the expected contribution to existing literature. And my overall comment, the statement on the problem is clear, organized, and aligned with the study's objectives. But it could be more strengthened. It could be strengthened by tightening its focus and ensuring that all questions are fully supported by the methodology. Overall, the statement of the problem is very good. Next, let's proceed to its research methodology. So first, let's try to check its research design. Stated here that the research design, the study used a descriptive correlational. So it's very good that the first sentence that you can see, that you can read in the research design is very good. You can easily understand what kind of study is this. So the descriptive correlational design is really appropriate for examining the relationship between 2 variables. The design aligns well with the main objective of determining whether a significant relationship exists. That's suitable for non-experimental educational research settings. For the areas for improvement, correlational design cannot establish causation, only association. The study occasionally implies prediction or influence which may overstep correlational limits. And no explanation why correlational design was chosen over other possible designs. You can also add the difference between the other design and why did you choose descriptive correlational. And my comment, the design is appropriate, but interpretation must avoid causal claims. Let's proceed with the local of the study. Local of the study was also indicated in her study. So the study is conducted at Malatag Elementary School. So the strength of this local of the study is that it clearly identifies the school and the district, provides transparency about research context. For the areas for improvement in this part, limited contextual description of the school. For example, its size, performance level, socioeconomic background, lack of context limits, understanding of external validity and generalizability. And my comment, clear setting, but more contextual information would strengthen interpretation. Next, the respondents. So let's try to assess the respondents of the study. So she wanted to assess the reading comprehension and the arithmetic proficiency skills of the students. So her respondents were the 14 grade 6 learners enrolled at Maratag Elementary School, Cabugao District 1 for the school year 2024-2025. So the strength for this part is that use total enumeration sampling appropriate for small populations. For the areas for improvement, I think the respondents were kind of too small to really assess the relationship between the two because she only used 14 respondents. Small samples may inflate correlation coefficients. Results cannot be generalized beyond the school. No demographic background, gender, or prior achievement. And my comment for the respondents of the study, sampling method is appropriate, but small sample significantly limits generalizability. So I think it's better to have a more respondents of the study to really, so that we could really say that there's a relationship or no relationship. The method is appropriate, but it's better to have more or to assess more students pa, more grade 6 learners, so that we can really say that the study is feasible and we can really say that the two variables do have relationship or not. But still, the response of the study is good. And let's proceed with the research instrument, still research methodology. So the strength for this part, use standardized and recognized tools, feel eerie for reading, and ATIN, which is the assessment tool for instructional needs for arithmetic. So the instruments are curriculum-based. This is from DepEd, and appropriate for grade level, which is the grade 6. Valid alignment between instruments and variables. For the areas for improvement, reliability coefficients were not reported. No detailed explanation of scoring procedures. Limited discussion of instrument validity within this specific sample. And my comment, instrument choice is strong, but reporting of reliability and validity could be improved. So the research instrument part is quite kind of short, but to improve this study, I want to, if I'm the researcher, I will explain more about the PhilEri and the ATIN, or the assessment tool for instructional needs for arithmetic. So we're done with the research instrument, and let's try to evaluate the data gathering procedure. So I have here screenshots for the study's data gathering procedure. So if I'm going to assess the data gathering procedure, the strength, it followed formal permission process, which is very good. Ethical considerations mentioned, and clear explanation of administration process. Areas for improvement for this part is that it lacks detail on testing conditions like time, location, and supervision. Next, no mention of how bias or testing errors were minimized, and no discussion of possible data limitations during collection, because she mentioned in the research instrument that she will use PhilEri and ATIN, but she didn't include any discussion of its limitations of the used questionnaire or research instrument. And my comment, ethical and procedural steps are very clear, as you can see, but the methodological transparency could be more deeper to make this data gathering procedure more detailed and complete. Next, the statistical analysis, which is the main part of this presentation, because we need to highlight the statistical analysis of our chosen study and try to solve it, try to assist it using the SPSS style output. And let's try to really carefully evaluate this part. So it's kind of long, but I want you to listen. And if you have comments about my evaluation, yes, please indicate your comments so that I could also read it and be able to develop my critical skills and analytical skills. So let's start with the statistical analysis. So the strength of this part is that the correct use of weighted mean and standard deviation for descriptive analysis. Pearson R is appropriate for two continuous variables, and clear reporting of correlation and p value. For the areas for improvement on this part, is assumptions of Pearson correlation not tested or reported. Linearity, normality, or absence of outliers. No scatter plot provided to visualize the relationship. No effect size interpretation beyond strength label. And my comment on this part is that statistical test is appropriate, but the assumption, checking, and visualization are missing. And I think those missing parts are really important in a study. Next is the table one on the results and discussion. We are done now with the methodology part. So we are bound to the results and discussions. Now, let's try to evaluate the first table, which is the reading comprehension level based on the DepEd theory and the arithmetic professional level assessment tool in numeracy or ATIN. So as you can see, this will be the basis of her result. And if I'm going to assess this part, the standardization for the tables 1 and 2, using the theory, which is in the table 1, and the use of ATIN, which is indicated in the table 2, scales is a major strength. These are from the Department of Education or DepEd recognized tools. By using them, the researcher ensures the results are comparable to other schools in the Philippines. For the areas for improvement, the prostration, which is the 74% and below, is very punishing, I think. In a class where the mean is 53%, the scale doesn't help distinguish between a student who is almost there, almost 70%, and one who is struggling deeply, 20%. Adding a struggling versus very low subcategory might have given more detail because the 74% and below is quite broad, I think. So I suggest to add struggling and very low subcategory to make it more detailed and to really distinguish the difference of the students when it comes to reading comprehension level. For the scale mismatch, table 1, which is the reading comprehension, uses a 3-point scale. When we say 3-point scale, it's indicated that there are 3 levels, which is independent, instructional, and frustration. On the other hand, table 2, or the arithmetic proficiency level, uses a 5-point scale. Advanced, highly proficient, developing, and beginning. So the issue here, I think, it is really hard or harder to correlate a 3-point status with a 5-point status. If a student moves from developing to proficient in math, they might still be stuck in frustration level in reading because that scale is less sensitive to small improvements. Again, the issue here is that the range or the level indicated in table 1 and table 2 is quite different. The first table uses 3-point scale and table 2 uses 5-point scale, which is kind of hard to get its relationship or to identify the level of the students, I think. So is it good? For me, yes. It is good and valid basis. The choice of this table shows the researcher prioritizes official standards over custom scales. So this table, the table 1, were adapted from the DepEd validated scales. It makes the study findings much more credible to school administrators and policy makers. Next is the third table, which is, you can see the relationship between variables. So this table shows the interpretative guide for the person R. So if I'm going to assess this one, this is the gold standard for social sciences. The 0.80 to 1 range for very strong correlation is mathematically rigorous, meaning the researcher didn't soften the requirements to make the results look better. And I think this part also is adopted, where I was adopted from the standard of the person R. And I think we cannot customize this one because this is the standard basis or the standard level for getting the relationship or the in solving the person R. Next table in the results and discussion, the table 4, it shows the standard used to evaluate the reading skills based on the Philippine Informal Reading Inventory. So at this part, the students were assessed in a 30-item questionnaire, and the table shows the learner 1 to 14, and the second column indicates the score of the students. Next, the mean score. Next, the reading comprehension level. And next is the interpretation. So this table is really complete, I think. And it sets the frustration level at 74% and below, instructional at 75 to 79%, and independent at 80 to 100%. So based on the scale, the study concludes that the majority of the pupils, as you can see, are at the port or at the frustration level because the overall mean was only 53.33%. So basically, the learner finds the text too difficult to understand. So most of them, or majority of the pupils, are at the frustration level. So this indicates that most students find their grade level text or the provided questionnaire too difficult to understand without significant assistance. Let's proceed to the next table. Table 5 shows the level of arithmetic proficiency skills of the 14 students. Still, learners 1 to 14. For the arithmetic proficiency skills, the student answered 40 items. The mean score also indicated the arithmetic proficiency level and its interpretation. So, this table defines the mastery levels for the assessment tool in numeracy or the ATEN. So, it uses 5 categories, diba? First, for the advanced, 91 to 100%, highly proficient, 81 to 90%, proficient is 75 to 80%, developing is 50 to 74%, and beginning is below 50%. And the findings, the pupil's overall mean score is 67.14. So, the majority of the students are at the developing level. This implies that while the students are not completely failing, they still require strategic support to master basic mathematical operation. This part is also clear and complete. Next, let's try to check the table 6. So in the table 6, it shows the result of the person R correlation, the relationship between the pupil's reading comprehension skills and arithmetic proficiency skills. So the table shows the two variables, which is very good. The N, which is the total sample. The person R result, which is the 0.90. The p-value. The decision, as you can see, reject the null hypothesis. And the interpretation is that very strong positive correlation, highly significant. And this table provides the criteria for interpreting the person R correlation coefficient and the significance level. So it defines an interval of 0.80 to 1 as a very strong relationship. As you notice on the third table earlier for the person R, so the results or the 0.90 person R, it falls under the very strong relationship. It's established that a p-value less than 0.001 is highly significant. So the study achieved an R value of 0.90 and a p, which is p less than 0.001, which table 3 identifies as a very strong positive correlation. So based on this result, the researcher can now conclude that there is really a relationship between the two variables, the reading comprehension and the arithmetic proficiency skills of the student. Because of this result, as you can see, very strong positive correlation and highly significant. If I'm going to evaluate the results and discussion evaluation, first, increase data granularity and sensitivity. The current scales in table 1 and 2 are standardized, which is good for efficient reporting, but they lack the sensitivity needed for a sample size, which is only 14 students. The frustration level problem, currently 12 out of 14 students are lumped into the frustration category, which is the 74% and below. To make this better, I would subdivide this category into low frustration, 50 to 74%, and severe frustration below 50%, to better target the specific needs of students, like the six student or the learner 6, which is 23.33%, versus learner 3, which is 73.33%. Both are in the frustration level, but did you see it's different? It's quite far. The gap is quite far. So it's better to subdivide this category to low frustration and severe frustration. And if we add these two categories, I think it's kind of better, because the reading comprehension level will change into 5-point scale, because we will add the low frustration and severe frustration, and it's already aligned. It can be aligned to the arithmetic proficiency skills, which also use 5-point Likert scale or 5-point scale. So I would perform an item by item analysis to identify which specific types of reading questions and which math operations, division or subtraction, caused the most failure. Next, evaluation. I would expand the research methodology. While the correlational design proves there is a relationship because it's 0.90. It doesn't explain why or how the students are struggling. I would add, if I'm the researcher, I would add a think aloud protocol or brief interviews. Asking students to explain their thought process while solving a problem would reveal if the error happened during decoding or the reading of words, integration or understanding of the context, or execution or the actual math calculation. Rather than a one-time snapshot, I would track these 14 pupils over a full school year to see if improvements in reading skills immediately translate to improved math scores. Because in the study, she just used the 30 items for the reading comprehension and 40 items for the arithmetic skills. And for me, it it cannot really assess the level of reading of the students' reading comprehension and the students of arithmetic proficiency skills, because the 30 item and 40 item is quite kind of short, and we cannot really judge the student if they cannot understand or how they decode, how they understand the context. So I would suggest that if we really do wanted to see the relationship of the two variables, it is better to conduct this for a full school year so that we can really say that this, if the students is it's in the lower level for the reading comprehension, it can affect also his or her numerical or proficient in arithmetic. See? And the sample is just 14 students, so we cannot really say. Next, to refine the intervention program. So the study proposes an intervention, right? It's indicated in the it was indicated in the title. So contextualized math literacy modules, I would develop specific worksheets where the math problem is embedded in the local story or community context to lower the cognitive load for students at this frustration level. Before teaching a math lesson on difference or product, I would conduct a pre-teaching session on the linguistic meaning of those terms, as the study confirms that language proficiency is foundational bottleneck. Next, address technical and statistical rigor. Inclusion of a control group. If possible, I would compare these 14 pupils with another group that receives only math instruction without reading integration to scientifically prove the effectiveness of the proposed reading math intervention. Next, if I were the researcher, I would keep these tables because of their official status, but I would suggest adding a qualitative component. While the scalings in Table 1 to 3 provides a rigid and objective framework, the 0 to 74% frustration bucket is too broad for a class of 14 students. To improve the study, the author should focus on the raw scores when deciding the intervention rather than just the labels, to ensure the students at the 20% level get different help than those at the 70% level. So now, I tried to get the mean or the result, the standard deviation, the person R of the study using SPSS. And as you can see, the sample size still 14. And person R, after I generated the result in the SPSS, it's kind of different from the study. So the study shows 0.90, while in my computation in the SPSS result, 0.96. Both indicate very strong positive correlation. My computation is slightly higher, but confirms the same with the study's conclusion. Still in the highly significant or very positive relationship. Same significance value, direction, the strength. In the assumption side, um, the study does not reported any assumption check. I would personally check linearity, normality, or outliers to ensure assumptions of person or correlation are met. And the conclusion part, reading comprehension predicts arithmetic proficiency. And I think I would still use how she concluded the study. So I agree with the study's conclusion. Improving reading skills will really likely help arithmetic performance. So I think we're just different from the person or result. My result is slightly higher than the study reported result. Next, in my independent recalculation, again using SPSS, I found person R is 0.96, whereas the study reports 0.90. So my result of 9.96 indicates an even more profound relationship than the author suggests. This means that approximately 92% of the variance in arithmetic proficiency is explained by reading comprehension in this group, compared to the 81% implied by the author's result. Despite the numerical difference, both results lead to the same critical conclusion. We must reject the null hypothesis. So the relationship is very strong and highly significant. To summarize my critical review on the study, so first in the title and abstract, the strength, clear focus, abstract mentions, and instruments. Areas to improve include descriptive statistics in abstract, mention educational implications beyond word problems. For the introduction part, connects literacy and numeracy for practical importance. I would suggest to include theoretical grounding, explicitly state research question, hypothesis, and add citations to similar studies, which is 5 years below. For the literature review, lacks discussion of comprehension types and cognitive mechanisms and few citations, but it's really good. Methodology, the sampling unclear because it's kind of too small. Operational definitions not fully detailed. Assumptions per person correlation not checked. Small sample limits generalizability. For the results part, the results narrative is heavy. It should include descriptive tables, SD, range, and scatter plots to make it more detailed and to make the readers easily grasp or easily understand the results of the study. And additional suggestion for the results and discussion, I would add or subdivide the frustration level into two to make it more 5-point scale. The same with the arithmetic, which also has 5-point scale. So for the computation, it's different a little, but the interpretation is still the same, valid, and assumptions should be explicitly checked. For the discussion, compare with other studies, explain cognitive mechanisms, and avoid implying causation. And for the conclusion, I would suggest to include or should acknowledge limitations and suggest directions for future research, specify instructional interventions. Based on my evaluation, here are my key points. The statistical method used is appropriate when you assess the relationship of two variables. It is correct to use the descriptive correlation or the person R. And second, my independent computation confirms the study's strong positive correlation. So the relationship is statistically significant and educationally meaningful. However, the small sample size is not recommendable. I think we can assess also other grade 6 learners from the other schools so that the sampling would be more so that the sampling would be greater than using only 14 students or learners. Assumptions testing should have been reported, and future studies should use larger samples and possibly experimental design. And I think this study can be a combination of quantitative and qualitative study. Next. My final recommendation for this study, the proposed intervention should not just integrate the two subjects, but should prioritize reading comprehension as prerequisite for math. So my SPS as a result of 0.96 confirmed that unless the reading barrier is broken, any attempt to improve math scores in this specific group will likely fail. Overall, the study is statistically significant diagnostic research that established a clear, undeniable link between literacy and numeracy among intermediate pupils at Madatag Elementary School. It successfully demonstrates that reading comprehension is not just a separate subject, but a foundational requirement for mathematical success. And this study would likely help the teachers, especially even in private school, that the teacher should develop first the reading comprehension of the students in order for them to easily grasp or understand mathematical problem and they can solve it. And I hope that the students would not fall on the frustration level because it will really affect the overall uh, the impact in the school. So it can affect the teacher, and I would like also to make the teacher realize that the two variables are connected. that reading comprehension should be developed first so that the students can easily solve mathematical problems. And I think that would be the end of my critical review from the research title Objectives, Methodology, Results, and Statistical Evaluation on the relationship of reading comprehension and arithmetic proficiency skills of intermediate pupils at Madatag Elementary School basis for intervention. Overall, the study is very good. There are just a few recommendations and revisions for this study so that we're able to really assess the relationship of the two variables. And I think that's it for my for the final requirement for the EM102 basic inferential statistics. If you have any comments and suggestions, I may put it in the comment section and I will read it and try to read back all your comments and I will send it to the researcher, to Ma'am Telma E. Dangao, because she provided her email too. And I think that will be all. Once again, I'm Desiree Dabalos, a student from the University of Mindanao, and this is my output for the final requirement for EM102 Basic Inferential Statistics. Have a good day. Thank you so much.